of our University Series panel. So thank you for those who are joining us. And I want to do a big shout out to our community and welcome to those who are coming back for the next edition and to those who are just recently joining us. So as I mentioned, here is a poll just to kick it off. We'd like to see why you were participating in tonight's session. So if you do that poll and should give us a few seconds while others start to join in. So thank you so much for that. So my name is Neil and I work with FinTech Cadence and I'll be the moderator for this evening. And I'm joined by my wonderful team at FinTech Cadence. And we have Leal El Hadi, our Executive Director, Geraldine Holiday, our Director of Operations, Nicolas Belliveau, our Head of Marketing, Pascal Van Winnendale, our Head of Community Outreach, as well as in charge of the series, as well as Marina Tiku, who is in charge of events. And I just wanted to do a small announcement that this is being recorded. So if anyone is a little bit shy or they don't want to share, that's quite all right. So just make sure that your camera is off and you could even change your name in Zoom. So if you want to stay anonymous, you could even change your name. So just to let you know that we are recording. Perfect. So today's topic is Discover the Tech in FinTech. And we are very happy to have Jan Avery, the CTO of Expertus Technologies. Thank you for joining us. And this evening, it's really about how technology affects our lives, how it works within FinTech, and a little bit about, as well, financial institutions and how are they dealing with the current crisis? Are they doing transformation? How are they using tech? So before we get into the meat of it, we also have another poll just to find out what areas do you want to learn about most today? And that'll help guide some of the questions as well, because this is a fireside chat. It's going to be a nice dialogue between Jan, myself, and you. So while you're answering that, I wanted to give a big shout out to also those who are in collaboration with us today, because we can't do it without our community. And this is a university series, so we also have collaboration with university clubs who help us to make this possible. And if you are interested in finding out more, you can also look on our Facebook event page, and they are co-hosted with us for this series. So for this evening, I would like to just give you a quick overview of the agenda. It'll be approximately 1 hour for the webinar. And what we're going to do is a quick introduction of us, FinTech Cadence, as well as a 30 to 35 minute panel with Yen. And we'll also have time at the end for questions. So you can either put them in the QA or we'll take it from the poll as well if you're a little bit shy. And also there's a chat functionality to see, if you like to do it live, you could do it on the chat functionality as well. And one of my colleagues will point out to us if you have a question. So just to give you an overview, if you weren't sure, we're FinTech Cadence. And if you don't know about us, we're a nonprofit incubator based out of Montreal. The heart of Montreal, we're really downtown, and we're at the center of the FinTech community. So I just wanted to say that it's really a broad outreach to everyone. We help to make sure that everyone is aware about FinTech. And we do this through really our 3 pillars. So that's to educate FinTech talent, support early stage startups, as well as collaborate with financial institutions and our partners to address industry challenges. But most importantly, we do this through our program. So one of the biggest ones we have right now is actually something called Formathon. It's our flagship and is really designed to help address real world problems that are present in the FinTech industry. So it's actually the largest FinTech competition in Canada, and it's taking place on May 28th, where you'll have a chance to explore FinTech industry challenges over the course of 3 weeks. Even if you're new to entrepreneurship, this is a really great opportunity to get your feet wet and see what's really out there in terms of exploring the industry. And you'll be able to do that through real challenges which are being presented to you. So there's two ways you can do this. There's actually two tracks within the program. It's split up into a startup track where you can create your own startup to be able to create a real product, which may even be able to be used in the marketplace afterwards. And then there's a research track where you can go into a group together and do a deep dive on a topic which is presented by the industry. And so this is really where you can present it as a research project, almost like a case study, which you have to present. And it's all culminates in a demo day. But this is really a program which is accessible for all. So there's no stress, but it's a lot of fun to be able to go through 3 weeks. And then at the end, you go to a demo day, present your findings, and hopefully win a prize. So this is taking place on May 28th. It's every Wednesday and Saturday for 3 weeks. I've done it myself twice. It's a lot of fun. It's a really great way of understanding the industry. I got into fintech because of it. And so I think it's a really good way of seeing what challenges are out there as well. In fact, just to find out what you're interested in, because of this current challenge we are facing now in this crisis, do you think COVID-19 and this current situation is related to these types of opportunities? So I'll let you do the poll. And while you're filling that out, I would like to say a big introduction without further ado. So this is Jan Avery from the CTO of Expertus. And make sure to, by the way, throughout the event, just make sure if you have any questions, raise your hand. So I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of it. And we'd like to hear from you throughout the fireside chat. So Jan, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Very nice. Thank you.
Of course. It's really a pleasure. So we've had the opportunity to speak together before, and I think we've been really lucky to have you as an expert in the past for our programs. But some of the audience here tonight may not know you so well. So how about I let you introduce yourself just so they know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, my name is Jan Avery. I work as CTO at Expertus. Maybe to give you a little bit more background about Expertus itself. So that it's a fintech company that's pretty well established now. They've been around for more than 18 years. Back in those days, that fintech word did not even exist. So, but it's still a fintech. So we're basically in the B2B space. We're dealing with we're in the payment space. Like we have customers like large banks and also corporates, large corporates. We build software to help them manage their treasuries. So basically, Expertus moves on average more than $25 billion on a daily basis. So I like to think of Expertus as like somewhat of a backbone of the Canadian banking system. So it's very critical. And as far as for myself, I've joined back in September of last year, so I'm fairly new to the company. I personally have a strong tech background in cloud and SaaS application software development, and also building and managing team around those two pillars. At Expertus, I oversee our development practice, and I also contribute to the overall company's tech strategy. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Perfect, fantastic. Thank you so much. And I guess what's really cool is what you may not know about Expertus Technology is one of the early movers within Montreal for fintech. And now that you're CTO and you're doing a lot of these initiatives, I was really just curious, how do you think that the positioning really helped get Expertus to this level, and what are you guys working on to take it there?
Okay, yeah. So like the current initiatives that we have, you mean, or like what made us come to that point?
Yeah, I guess from your perspective, how did you get to this point, and now how are you taking it to the next level with your initiatives?
Right. Yeah, sorry about that. That was my dog.
No, not at all.
If you heard that. So yeah, so basically like I think the key things that made us get to where we are today are like there's many things. One of them, I think, is that we were very bold, like in like we did like a very innovative things at one point. Like for an example, to give you one, is Expertus adopted one of the industry standards called, well, back then it was not an industry standard, but ISO 20022 payment format. So back then it was not really a standard, but Expertus took a very bold move, and they just embraced it and said, like, this is going to be the foundations of our system. And we used that format, and we're still using that today. So that was very bold, and actually today it's paying off, because right now this standard is actually being pushed by Swift, which is a consortium that's driving kind of the banking industry. And this has kind of is now actually making mandatory for all banks to actually adopt that standard. But we are already in a pretty good spot, because we've been drinking that Kool-Aid for quite some time now. So I think that making these bold moves actually helped us get to where we are today, because we're always like at the in front of the curve. So that's one thing. Right. Another aspect also that I think that really helps is that we're investing a lot in young talent. Like our company hires a lot of school graduates, and we really have a strong philosophy of hiring young talent, and we actually help them and mentor them to get to those highly rewarding roles within the organization. And we have even people that have been around at Expertus for more than 14 years. They were out of school, they did the internship with us, and they stayed, and they're still with us today after 14 years. So I think this kind of a testament to how important it is to have like good company culture and treat your employees well. So yeah, I think those are key things that made Expertus where they are today.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think especially I like the fact that you're touching on, you're ahead of the curve in terms of the adoption of these standards, which are super important for the banking industry. So being prepared when these changes take place. And I love that you do hire a lot of co-op students. I know we talked in the past about this, and I think that's really fantastic for those who are students listening in to know that fintech companies want you and your talent, and not only that, but your the thought processes of that generation really helped to move it along in terms of innovation. So I think that's really great. These two topics that really are fantastic for our listeners here. So do you have anything new that you're working on that you're excited about that would you consider ahead of the curve?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really depends. I mean, for some, it might not sound like it's ahead of the curve, but since the banking industry is like so slow and so they're not really quick movers. Things that are for me like big things are like cloud computing. We're doing a lot of that, and we took a bold move 3 years ago. And like I said, like for some industries, 3 years ago for cloud was not that big of a deal, but in the banking space, it is because even banks today are not even there yet. So that's one thing. Cloud computing, I think, is a big thing. And also APIs with open banking initiatives and things like that are also big things for us, and we're seeing a lot of movement in that space as well, especially in Europe, because they're being kind of forced into it. But we're even seeing that even though they are forced, banks are actually doing things like by themselves, because they see the value that opening APIs to the outside is going to be beneficial for them. So those are like two things. Also, there's AI and machine learning also, I think, that are a big thing. At least for us, they are, because we have for example, on AI, we have couple initiatives that are based on that, around routing of payments and also fraud detection. So those are probably also two other areas where we're going to be investing a lot in the upcoming months.
Cool. And I guess so. I mean, on that topic, so you mentioned a few technologies like cloud computing and API, which in Europe is important for open banking. For listeners who aren't sure, it allows basically your your personal information to be your personal information instead of owned by the bank, and therefore the exchange is much easier between entities. And I guess so. And now moving on to that, like these are a few different types of tech verticals. What would you say are some common ones? You mentioned something working on within Expertus. Like, what are some common ones within fintech that people could like grasp?
Well, like for example, on the cloud computing front, there's a lot of demand right now. Like financial institutions are actually going out and in their RFPs, like requests for proposals, when they're looking for like vendors to build systems for them. They're actually right now requesting that the solutions that are provided to them are cloud-based. That is something that we're starting to see, and we didn't see that before. So it's important for people that are building solutions right now that they understand that, and they're building around that, because otherwise they're going to be shut down and they'll be left in the dust. So I think this is one thing that's really, really important for people to adopt now. Yeah, it's a key thing.
So cloud computing really is, it's like, so it's something that I guess, you know, in some certain startups have been doing this for a while, but in the fintech, maybe it hasn't been as prevalent, especially if you're touching with banks, right? So I guess that's where it's kind of moving towards, so that we could get them in line with like SaaS products, which have been doing that for quite some time, right? And I guess so now with this current situation, and there's a lot of costs involved for this sort of thing, right? For you know, transforming yourself into a cloud-based or a cloud-first strategy for a company. With the current situation in terms of spending, how do you feel that the market is reacting in terms of that type of innovation?
Well, yeah, with the current situation, of course, things are a bit changing. You're talking about the COVID situation, or?
Yeah, well, especially for the financial industry in terms of the market. So I mean, spending, I'm not sure if you've seen that there's been an effect on spending, because I know transformation is very big for and very important for banking institutions. Have you seen that this is affected in some way?
Well, for us, we've been fortunate enough that it hasn't been that big of an impact, because we are considered an essential service. Like, as I was mentioning initially, our systems are actually used by the banks to actually move money around. So it's not like we're not in a B2C space. Like, if someone were to be in a B2C space, yeah, obviously they'd be hit really hard with what's going on right now. But us being in the B2B space, we're fortunate enough that there was not that big of an impact. I mean, there was, because we do have a couple corporates that put their projects on hold, and they're going to resume them later probably in the second half of the year when things start moving again. But we haven't, like, and I speak, like I said, like, we are a B2B, so impact was not that great, fortunately for us. I mean, there was some impact. Obviously, we're all working remotely. We're all, you know, all that stuff. But from a business and from a revenue standpoint, it hasn't impacted us that much. And we're actually hiring right now. If anyone's interested, we have like a lot of open positions, because
Shoutout
for us, we're just
team here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if anyone's interested, we're hiring. So yeah. So to answer your question, impact is very moderate, fortunately for us. Yes.
And do you feel that other startups are as fortunate with that? You're mentioning like B2C might be more affected. I'm not how do you feel like for other tech startups here in Montreal? I mean, I guess in Canada in general too, we have some audience from outside of Montreal. How do you feel that like they're sort of the ones who are trying to champion innovation and disruption, if we can call it that, to certain things within fintech? And do you feel that they're reacting well? Like, do you feel like the startups are able to still innovate?
I think they can. I mean, I think this is a temporary thing. So, I mean, anyone that had a good idea can still, you know, push their idea forward. Obviously, it's going to be a bit slowed down by what's going on, but I definitely think that it's still possible to do like all your normal activities. I mean, especially with the technology right now, people are doing like what we're doing right now, like you know, Zoom or Hangouts or whatever, or Google Meet. Like, things can still happen. Everything is in the cloud. Like for us, Expertus, like all of our infrastructure was already geared towards working remotely. So we have like everything, like our Git repos were in the cloud, like our Jira, like, bug tracking, everything is in the cloud. So basically we can do everything from our houses. So it's not preventing. And I think that for startups, this is probably standard. Like I don't like right now in 2020, I think people are already are setting themselves up that way. So they should be able to keep doing that. But obviously, from a business or revenue standpoint, probably right now is not a good time to try and go and get customers, because like like everyone's priorities are more like, stay safe. And but as soon as this is all finished, like maybe it's hard to say when, but like if we're lucky, sometime in fall or second half of the year, I think that whatever good idea these people have now, they should still be good ideas later. So they should still be able to execute on those at that point.
What are some good ideas that you've seen in the startup sphere so far? Like, what's some good tech projects that are interesting for you?
Yeah, I saw that product that when I saw one of your I attended one of your I forgot how you call them there, but there was one of your incube projects that I really liked. I don't know if I'm not allowed to
from the
disclose
incubator.
Yeah, but I saw some really good ideas in there. I was like,
sure.
I wish I would have thought about it, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to disclose any of it. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of good ideas out there. And actually with this whole COVID thing going on, that's what I've been telling my kids. I see like videos on Facebook. Like people are so creative. I think like things happen and people like find like super good ideas. They make the best out of any situation. I think it's just the human nature. So yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on.
And what are some? I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say like for like innovative things that I like that I've seen. It's not like that new, but it's still something very actual. Like for example, Netflix. Like I don't know, like we've been watching a lot of Netflix lately, and
me too.
Yeah, everyone is, right? So, and the thing is, it's really surprising how this platform holds up to the high volume, right? It's like people are watching more and more, and it's holding up. While on the other side, I see IGA, Metro, and Provigo, like all these grocery stores, are not even able to handle the load for like just a couple of people doing their groceries. So to me, that's like, it's interesting, and it sheds some light on the fact that Netflix has a tremendous infrastructure that they've built over the years, and they've been open sourcing it, and they have all these frameworks, and it's all available. They even have an engineering blog. You can just go and read it. And to me, this is awesome, because people could actually build great solution based on all of these products that are open source and make it as reliable and as awesome as Netflix is. And I wish IGA, Metro, and Provigo would do that. But yeah, so that's one thing. Like Netflix, it's all on GitHub. Everyone can just get all that tech and use that as their underpinnings. It's no joke. It's really awesome. So yeah.
So I guess I mean that availability of technology now, it's so like the barrier to entry is quite low for those who want to spin up these sorts of things. And I guess that's what we're trying to impart as well to our audience, is like there's so many different aspects of tech, and there's misunderstandings about some, and there's some glorifications of others. And I think what's interesting what you're mentioning is that infrastructure is like there's a backbone of technology that helps power so many of our services, whether it's Netflix or banking services, right? And you're not always going to see these in glorified way, but they're super necessary, and actually just as fascinating because of how like so much is based on them. So I think that's a really interesting. In fact, there's someone who asked a question in the chat, so I'll give a quick shout out to someone in the chat just because there are a few questions there. And one of them was, is Expertus based on blockchain technology? And I thought that was an interesting question because, so thank you, Patrick, for that, because I think people don't, what is blockchain versus infrastructure? And like, how do things, what's the layer underneath, right? And then, so I'll let you answer that. I mean, But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and it's funny that someone brings that question up because earlier on when we were talking, I was mentioning that Expertus was very like took some bold moves at different points of time,
Hmm.
and one of the moves they did is they were actually one of the first to introduce cryptocurrency as part of their payment platform, and that cryptocurrency was called Ripple. And actually that was one of the bold moves that we took that didn't pay off as well as we thought. But that's the thing, when you take decisions, sometimes it does pay off, sometimes it doesn't. You need to do those things, and that's what
Hmm.
being a startup is all about, right? It's taking those direction, taking those making those moves, and like
Hmm.
you're hoping that it'll pay off. And sometimes they don't. For us, and again in the B2B space, the cryptocurrency, like that thing wasn't really a good one, unfortunately, because like we said priorly, like banks, they're not really quick to adopt these things.
Right.
And unfortunately we were like way too early for them to embrace this. So but it's
Mm.
still there, if we ever need it, we have it. It's there, it's in our platform. um
Hmm.
but yeah, so that, yeah, so
So
that's my
taking some
take
bold
on
moves.
yeah,
Yeah.
taking bold moves in any area actually. And it
Hmm.
needs to be measured, right? You can't just go and do all kinds of crazy things, but you need to take those bold moves once in a while if you want to stay ahead of the curve and if you want to thrive within your space, I think.
Absolutely. And so what is, 'cause you were mentioning some bold moves you made with blockchain, which are, it's quite nascent still as a technology. And then I guess even banks are starting to explore that a little bit. So, but I mean, in terms of adoption, like where are they at right now? And like how are they starting to look at these new types of tech?
Well, it depends. Like for blockchain, there was no traction even as of today. I mean, it's very slow. They're not. I don't think there's any adoption at that point. At least in our space. I mean, again,
Mm.
the fintech is so big, right? That there's like a lot of different verticals. We're in a B2B space. We are in the corporate payment space. So this, like for us, like blockchain is not really something that's going to be lifting off soon. Not that
Mm-hmm.
it never will. I mean, I'm sure it will at some point, but we're not there yet. But there are so many other areas, like we've talked about, like APIs and things like that.
Right.
We've seen that banks are actually moving forward, and they're actually going beyond what the government regulation is asking them. Like government is like there's
Mm-hmm.
some minimum requirements that the government is imposing on them, but they're actually going beyond what is being asked because they get it. They understand that this is going to be adding value to their offering through like
Mm-hmm.
external platforms that are extending their core offering basically. So that we've seen a lot, and I think it's definitely something that's getting a lot of traction right now. And we also, as a company, as Expertus, we are trying to leverage that and do a lot of integrations with all the different banks that do have APIs available.
Interesting. So, so I guess that brings me to my next point as a nice segue. So, one of the ones that you're working on are APIs and integration. And what would be the top three interesting tech items that you want? If you're not working on them now, would you like to work on them?
Yeah, like I said, those would be the three that we talked about earlier. I think it would be like cloud computing, APIs, and AI and machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one I would say that we're least involved with right now, but we do want to get a lot more movement on is AI and machine learning. For us,
Mm-hmm.
this is something where we can see a lot of value, especially in our space with the payments. Like maybe people know or maybe they don't, but the way payments work is they go through a lot of like different hops before they reach like from source to destination. And
Right.
all these hops, there's additional costs and additional time delays associated with all these hops. So we're looking at using maybe artificial intelligence to optimize those routes so that the
Mm-hmm.
payments can go quicker from point A to final destination, and also save money to the financial institutions that are actually issuing those payments, because there's cost involved on each of those hops. So, and for us, AI and machine learning will be very helpful because we're going to be able to analyze trends and all the fun stuff that AI and machine learning is bringing to the table. But this is an area where we will be investing a lot in the next coming months and years for sure.
Is that a common trend, would you say, among, I mean, so AI is used a lot within the fintech space, and for startups especially. And would you say that, you know, you're a more mature company and you have the resources to be able to explore this? And then would you say that, is there too much buzz for startups, or should they still do it? Should they get into it and start innovating in AI? Because I know that some companies can afford to do it, and some at the early stage maybe don't have the capacity. So is it worth exploring?
I think it is, but it depends. It really depends. I think, like you said, it's a huge buzzword right now. And the thing is, you need to make sure that the problem you're trying to solve is an actual problem that requires AI and machine learning, because not all of them are. And if it's not, then you can just go by using regular, like logic and whatever. But if you do have a problem that does match the like there are some pattern and there's all that stuff going on, then maybe I think it is definitely worth looking into. But yeah, it requires also the right skill set to do so. So if you need to have the right people, but I think with the co-ops and all that, you can get a lot of good talent from out of school, and those are actually good projects that for those graduates or interns, because they can learn a lot and they can bring a lot too, because I think these are topics that are very popular in school as well. So there's a lot of traction in the schools with those as well.
And do you feel that, coming from Concordia myself and business technology management, we have some courses on this type of thing, but mostly it was focused on like back-end databases but there are some great graduate level programs I've seen as well. So for those who are students and are listening in, so what can they do in school and out of school to sort of stand out? Like what sort of skills should they start learning?
Well, I mean, they should look at AI and machine learning in general, but I think they should also try and identify like the different technologies. I'm not myself an expert in it by any means, so it would be hard for me to give specifics on, oh, go learn this or go learn that. But I think they should try and learn at least the general like concepts, to make sure they understand, like I said before, what types of problem are eligible or that makes sense to use AI for and what doesn't, because I think it's the most important thing. You don't want to do AI just for the fun of doing it, because it's maybe too complicated and it won't help you solve any real problem. I think that's maybe the first thing. And then after that, there are courses that could be taken from the university on the specifics, and I think they should go along with those and see what suits them.
And do you feel that, because I know you take in quite a few co-op students as well, and what's the on the job? Is it like a big ramp up coming from university into your first tech type of position, where whether it's programming or back-end databases or maybe it's project management, like what do you expect to see from day one? Like do you I'm assuming you have an approach to how you help integrate them.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a really good onboarding process at Expertus. We even have what we call the Expertus campus. So we have a lot of hand-holding and onboarding, and the teams are also built so that they can accompany the interns throughout the process. But basically on day one, people aren't expected to be like Top Guns, because they are hired as interns, and we give them bite-sized projects or sub parts of a project, so they can work on something that's not too intimidating for them at first, but they still feel that they contribute to the big picture, like the big thing. But we team people together. We have like small teams, and they're going to be put inside a team, and they would work with more senior people together, and I think it's also a big culture thing, right? It's the way we think, the way we work. it's not like a command and conquer approach. It's very agile and very, it's a big family. So I think that helps a
Mm,
lot too for onboarding all these the interns within the company.
fantastic. Well, I mean, I think with your, because you've had extensive experience going through a number of roles to kind of get to that point of being a CTO. And I think it's important for those who are students and even those who are young professionals and just starting off in fintech to see that it is like a transition you can make over time, right? And I think it's very important to know. And are there some resources you suggest to improve? Like I'm sure over time you've had to improve your knowledge in areas, and how did you go about doing that? And what's some advice for them in terms of how do they find places to learn that tech they can use to climb the ladder and get advance their career?
Right. Well, there's different ways, and I often hear people saying like, oh, did you do the knowledge transfer from this person to that person? But the thing is, it doesn't happen that way. I mean, the best way to do it is just like practice, like not even practicing, but actually doing the real thing, the real work, right? So when
Mm,
people start working, at first they won't know much, right? And that's normal. But then they'll get an actual problem, they'll need to solve it, and then they'll do all the research either on the internet or within the existing code base or on Stack Overflow, or like there's so many
right.
resources, and then
Yeah.
they'll just understand how things work and they'll figure it out. And I think that's how you build your expertise, is not by having someone telling you, oh, that's how you should do it, or it's actually by finding by yourself and
Hmm.
figuring out and trial and error, and try this, it fails, try that, it fails, and then, oh, now it works. And it's by doing that and doing it repeatedly and constantly and year after year after year, and then you're building your own expertise or knowledge.
Hmm.
And I think that's probably the best way to do it. There are like a lot of resources that we use internally at Expertus. We use a resource called A Cloud Guru for all of our training for AWS and whatnot. But again, this is just like videos that you listen to, which are pretty good, by the way. But you
Check
also
it out.
need to do the practicing, right? You need to practice. You need to not only watch these videos, you actually need to roll up your sleeves and do the thing and
Yeah.
play with the tools. Otherwise, it doesn't sink in, and you're not going to become an expert at it. So
Great. It's good advice. And I think that also, to add on to that, I mean, entrepreneurial spirit, what you're describing is entrepreneurial spirit and entrepreneurial spirit, right? So you can do this by creating a company in fintech, or you can be an entrepreneur and be, agile in your approach to working within a company. And I think that's what's kind of interesting about the tech and fintech is like really, it's something that the playbook is open, right? If you put the effort in, and like you said, you really have to dive into it and get your hands dirty, explore, and really see,
don't yeah don't be afraid to mess up, right? I mean, it's
right?
especially when you're in tech, I mean, it's not going to compile. Worst case, it's not going to compile. Just start over, do it again, try it again. Like there's so many back and forths that are possible.
Hmm.
And there's even like in our space, there's even tax credits for that. Like there's like shred, like scientific research and experimental development. They're actually paying money for people that do that, because they're trying, they're failing, they're trying again, they're
Hmm.
failing, and then they're doing this back and forth a couple of times until they get it. And government's actually giving tax credits for that, because that's what's it, no, it's all about. It's about trying
Absolutely.
things and failing and trying again and failing, and then at some point it'll work. And that's
Yeah.
that's 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 what the game is. So yeah.
And that's innovation. I think that's what
Yeah.
innovation is trial and
Hmm.
error.
Yep.
Well, I mean, thank you for that amazing. We want to kind of keep around 35 to 40 minutes. So thank you for the fireside chat portion. I think that was a really interesting. I think it was a really interesting dialogue on how like tech can evolve. We see the angles from the startup perspective, from somewhat of a more mature fintech to banking, and also how students can explore tech. So I think it was a really good wrap up with that, just so they can see like what type of technology maybe they can start learning in the future. But we do have some questions from the audience as well. So I like to integrate them and have them be involved, if that's okay. We have some already in the chat, and if give you a few seconds if you want to write some more down there, and I'll start doing them in order. Let's just give me a second here. So there's a little bit, I'm going to scroll up, and then if you put it in the chat, I think we have a QA function as well. So if you want, you could put in the question and answer function within Zoom. If you are on mobile, it might be a little bit more difficult, but you could put in the chat. So I'm just going to start going through here and see what we've got. Da, da, da. Okay, one of them was from David. This is way at the beginning. Sorry, David, we're getting to you now. Yes, what might be some good questions to ask or differences to explore when considering fintech ideas?
Can you repeat that? Sorry, I didn't get that.
Sure, of course. So it was, what might be some good questions to ask or differences to explore when considering fintech ideas? So I'm assuming from an entrepreneurial standpoint. Yeah. Well,
okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm not the best person to answer that. Like, I'm not a biz dev kind of guy, but I mean, I think in any startup or any fintech or not, I mean, I think what you need to do is you need to solve a problem, and whatever you're building needs to solve a problem. If you're doing that and you're addressing something, then that's what the whole thing is, right? So if you need to find a space or an area where there's a problem and that there is no solution for, and you need to build something that will solve that. I mean, I don't know if that answers the question. I'm not too sure, but maybe you can add more stuff, Niall. But to me, that's the key thing. And also, when you do that, you need to be careful to remain focused, because I mean, at some point when you're starting, it's also very easy to get all excited about all kinds of problems, and then you're trying to tackle too many at once, and you end up not doing anything because you're trying to do too many things at once. So
go deep, like be an expert, right? I mean, you have to really be an expert.
Focus.
Cool, thank you. So we have another one. I'm curious to know more about POS, or point of sale systems, are being disrupted by fintech. If you have this is more retail based, I guess, but I'm not sure if you want to wade into that.
Not really my area expertise. POS, I mean, point of sale. Sorry, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, again, I think fintech, like I remember there was one project when we were at FinTech Cadence that was about point of sale stuff. So yeah, for sure, there's like I said, fintech is so wide. Like, it's B2C, it's B2B, and even within each of those, there's like so many different areas. The fintech is just so wide. There's so many different things people could be doing in there. So, but yeah, no, I don't have any specific answer, unfortunately, on point of sale related stuff. Unfortunately, it's not an area we're doing here at Expertus. So sorry about that.
I mean, no, it's fine. I think I could weigh in slightly with that. Like you mentioned, one of our startups in our incubator is Leave, and they are looking at point of sale disruption. And it's a good question. It's really hard to answer. Sorry, I think this is from Felix. So it's a hard question to answer because we're not necessarily experts in that domain, but we've definitely seen lots of startups try and address it, right? I mean, even like Lightspeed is massive, and they're powering this back end, right, for point of sale. And now with this situation, a lot of people aren't going out to do point of sale transactions, if you think about it. So I'm not sure if that, and also the way our habits evolve, might be more the disruption, right? I mean, maybe it's our habits more than anything else. Maybe not even the technology that might disrupt.
And with the event of like mobile devices and all these different things, like there's so many new clever ideas that could come up. For sure, there's something that can be disrupted in that space, I'm sure, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. So second question is, during the outbreak, is IRR still the focus in financing decisions? So I'm not a finance person. I'm not even sure what IRR is. Maybe you can answer this.
Me neither. I don't know IRR what is.
This is from
Sorry.
EV. I'm not sure if EV can put a clarifying. I'm not sure if you're here or not. If you want to clarify that question. Internal rate of return, David says. Thank you, David. Is internal rate of return still the focus in financing decisions?
Again, it looks more like when you're doing borrowing money and things like that, but it's not something we're doing. So sorry,
Perfect.
don't have any. It's not
All
in
good.
our space, so. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
Like,
that's good. I'm not an expert either.
Again, the thing is, fintech is so wide. I mean, I can see why people are asking these questions, because they're seeing this as one thing, but it's so wide. And again, like I said, if you want to succeed in this space, or in any space, you need to be focused, right? And this is what Expertus does. They do payments, and they do corporate treasury management. So this is what we do. This is what we're expert at. So anything beside, we don't know. I mean, we might know, but it's not what we're focusing on, because again, it's really important that we stay focused. That's how you succeed. That's the key. So,
and what do you so how, I mean, do you have a lab? Like, how do you focus? Because like you said, there's so many different verticals right now, and there's different types of technology that everyone can be involved in. So I guess, at Expertus, how do you focus? How do you decide where to focus that technology and what you're developing?
Yeah, well, the thing is, we are a product driven company, so we have a roadmap, and things get prioritized on that roadmap. There's obviously a bunch of initiatives that are thrown at us, and then we have product committees where we actually decide on what those priorities are going to be, what we're going to be working on next, basically. Because again, it's really easy to get distracted and work on the latest, like the newest thing around the block, right? But the thing is, if you do that, there's going to be another new thing the week after, and then there's going to be another new thing the week after. So you need to keep focused, and so we need to wait. Like there's a bunch of aspects that we wait on. For example, there's just to give a couple axes on which we wait. There's obviously the economical value of that thing. So if we build it, how much is that going to be bringing in the company, like money wise? There's also strategical positioning. So if we build this thing, like how is that going to position us strategically versus our competitors, or is that going to position us in a better state for another project that we had? Because sometimes there's dependencies between projects. So we need to build this thing before we can build this other thing. So sometimes we might be building something that won't be economically viable, but it'll allow us to build a second thing after that's going to make more sense, you know? So it's all about building this big puzzle. So you need to take the right steps to get there. So yeah, that's kind of how we decide on what initiatives we're going to be working on. And that's how we're building our roadmap year over year. So yeah.
Cool. That's great advice, though. Perfect. So we have a couple of other questions here. Felix, asking more about open banking and how fintech companies can use financial data to create new business opportunities. I think this is a good one for Expertus, actually.
Yeah. And again, even in that space, there's so many different routes you can go. Like in our case, for example, we're going to be using, we're starting to use all these APIs to do real-time account balances. But again, you need to find, you know, in your niche, what it is that you're trying to do, and then you're going to leverage those APIs to help you do what you're trying to do. In our case, we needed to have real-time account balances because we want to have this information available in our application, so that treasurers can take better decisions, because they know in real time what the account balance is for this account. So you need to keep in mind, like corporate treasurers, they manage, let's say one large corporate, they manage thousands of bank accounts, right? Not only one or two, like thousands of bank accounts. And these thousands of bank accounts are spread across multiple financial institutions, across multiple countries. So they need to kind of get a bird's eye view of all of their like holdings, like their positions, like where am I? So and then they need to move money around quickly, like from this account to that account, to maybe reduce bank fees because they have an overdraft over here and they have a lot of money over there. So just going to move money around a bit to remove those banking fees. So that's for us one of the key things we wanted to achieve with this, is like to get those real-time account balances. But you know, for someone else, it might be to initiate a payment, because that's also something you can do with open banking with all these APIs. You know, it really depends. And one thing we did observe though with these APIs is not all banks have the same value prop in terms of what they're offering in their APIs. Some have a much richer API where you can do all kinds of things, and others have like very reduced or limited things that you can do with their API. So again, it depends what you're trying to do. But yeah, you just need to look at that. And there's also something that's interesting that we've observed, is that now there are companies that are actually, and I forgot the name, there's a couple of players in that space. They actually add an abstraction layer. So you don't need to talk with all the financial institutions individually. You can talk to that abstraction layer, and they will behind the scene talk to all the different financial institution APIs. So you don't need to develop against all the different, like, because each bank have their own APIs, right? They're not standardized. That makes it very, very complicated, but that's how it is. So,
right. So that mean if that was to come into Canada, I think they actually called it something else as an open banking, but it's more like KYC is super important, like you said, like the banking accounts, being able to have that banking information, and an open API sort of standard too. Like you were mentioning standards before too, and I think that's, you know, like if you don't have that, then no one can talk to each other.
Exactly. No, and that's the thing right now. Those API, like in Europe, they have a norm, like a spec. It's called open banking, but in America or in Canada, they have each bank has or I mean, not even all banks have them, but like those that do have an API, they're completely different from one bank to another. So you basically need to do an integration for every single bank you're going to be working with, unless you go through one of those abstraction layers that I was mentioning earlier, which do that abstraction for you. So you don't need to worry so much about it. You just need to talk to that one layer, which is one common layer, and they will know how to talk to all these other banks like JP Morgan or Bank of America or HSBC or, you know, whatever. And they know how to do it all. So those are different options, but obviously if you go through one of those aggregators, or not aggregators, but abstraction layers, there's additional costs in doing it. So
cool. So I think all questions have been answered. If not, my apologies. Maybe if the audience has more questions about tech and fintech, would they be able to reach you on LinkedIn or Twitter or something that you're
yeah, sure, they can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Yeah,
fantastic.
Or Twitter as well if they want. Either.
Oh, I'm not even on Twitter, so you're ahead of me. Wonderful. So I'm just, can you see my screen? Yes, there we go. So I would like to thank you for being here. It's really fantastic to have you. And I mean, it's always a pleasure talking to you one-on-one. And I think which is kind of nice is I know people from the audience also had questions, and hopefully they learned a bit more about the tech and fintech. So again, thank you, Jan, for taking the time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.
My pleasure. And perfect. And now I just want to do a quick after action just to let everyone know thank you for being here, number one. And if you haven't checked it out already, here is our schedule for the university series. Our next one is Cash Not Accepted, April 23rd. And you can subscribe on our Facebook event page, and you will actually have access to all of them. So you should already be getting these notifications by email. But keep a lookout for the next one and our next speakers. And just a quick reminder that for FinTech Cadence, we're really have our program coming up based on Formathon, which starts May 28th. So if you are interested, we actually have a poll to come up to see if you would like to join us for Formathon. And you can also find out more information on our website, of course, and you can feel free to tag us at FinTech Cadence if you would like to share any of this information. So again, thank you so much. And I'll wait for everyone to finish the poll. There's a few seconds, but I want to thank you again and for joining us again.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I hope you enjoyed the webinar.